9238. You can also go to their website at www.enerfood.com. That's ENERF like Frank, OOD like dog.com. Enerfood.com. A big thank you to all of our listeners already taking the products that Enter Health offers. We truly appreciate it. We thank you for your support and encourage you to listen often to stay informed during these crucial times.
Right by where I walk out of the garage to go to the mailbox, I see a small rattlesnake about 2 to 3 feet long, and quite interesting, isn't it? Quite interesting. So, of course, I cut the head off the snake, and I will next time I'll make sure that I use one of those ice choppers, long-handled ice chopper. And next time I'll make sure that I've got it sharpened and my hose and everything sharpened to the max as it is. It's kind of interesting. It's just a little story, but you see, when you go directly at Lewisburg, you go after the serpent, then the serpent comes to you. And it's not lost on me that is exactly what has come after me, and it's just a sign given by Lucy, what's going on with him. So, never take these things too lightly, because this stuff is connected, if you know what I mean. And, it's just getting to be really interesting. The events every day, it's more and more and more and more. Anyway, you already know that. So I'll tell you what, let's start out tonight, first of all, by just saying that there's power in the blood of Jesus. And with what I think is getting ready to happen, and the war and all the different items. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Hawk. It's live now. I'm sorry it took me a while to dial in. I don't know what's going on with my little box here, but for whatever reason, I'm just not getting in. It is Friday night, 7/5/2013. This is a live show. Now, let me just say this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start out with the good stuff right off the bat, so to speak, rather than work up to it, But at first, I would be remiss, if I did not honor what took place yesterday, in a sense, many, many years ago. And I would say it this way: when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and the nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their power, their just powers, from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be challenged for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Now, I'm not going to finish, but that is the Declaration of the Independence. That is the portion of it there that I like to focus on. And there are all kind of reasons, but let me just give you some ideas here. And we're working on the fact of this line right here. Whenever, let's see, where are we at? But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Evinces a design, or invariably, pursuing the same object. Well, now we have an admission by General Clapper, the Director Clapper of the Director of National Intelligence. Basically, this is the headline out of the U.S. News World Report. It's from the other day, and I know this, July 2nd. But still, National Intelligence Director apologizes for lying to Congress. Clapper, isn't a lie to Congress perjury? Isn't that perjury when you lie to Congress? Isn't that perjury? Isn't that a felony? Federal marshals, couldn't you arrest Clapper if he lied to Congress and committed perjury before Congress? And now he admits it? So isn't that a confession of perjury? And are you not now bound, federal marshals out there, service? Are you not now bound to arrest this man on behalf of Congress? And the fact that you do not do it, and he's allowed to do this, is basically because he's claiming to be above the law. Well, let me tell you something. He's not above the law of the Lord. He's not above the law of the Lord, and he is a tear. He is a tear, and he will be rooted out. He'll be rooted out by the archangels and be sent to the fiery furnace. When Jesus sends his angels to pluck the tares, those who work iniquity, because this man lied before Congress. And then he says, I spoke erroneously, or I made an erroneous statement. So now when you talk to the IRS, I guess you can use the Lois Lerner defense and say, I plead the Fifth Amendment. Although in tax court they say you cannot use the Fifth Amendment because you have no constitutional rights. You waive them when you go into tax court. And you go before that bar, the mercantile bar, that ancient law of the sea bar. In other words, the barrier, that prevents you from, when you get in there and you go to the witness stand, you basically entered onto the boat, onto the poop deck or whatever. Let me get out getting into all that depth of the whole scenario. The fact is, I guess now, if the FBI asks you a question, I guess you can say to them, I spoke erroneously. I guess it's okay to lie to Congress. I guess it's okay to lie then to the FBI. I guess it's okay to lie to the IRS. I guess it's okay to lie to the local cops. You can just say, I'm bad, my bad, I spoke erroneously, ha, 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 but I was doing it for a good cause to save America, I did not have sex with that woman, like Clinton said. What's the definition of the word is? General Clapper, you folded up under questioning like a $2 gun-toting perp on a Saturday night. You ought to be arrested by the federal marshals and put in there for perjury. Multiple counts of perjury now. Now you've admitted it. So now there's no question that you basically lied to Congress. Consequently, you committed perjury before Congress. You were under oath at that time. You were testifying. And when Senator Wyden asked you the question, so he said, I gave erroneous answer because I forgot about the Patriot Act. Well, let me tell you something. You forgot about the Patriot Act? And are these, ladies and gentlemen, a long train of abuses and usurpations? Does this fit in with that? You have surveillance, according to the Verizon thing, of all the phone calls, basically from Verizon. Well, it's the other people. You go to the PRISM documents, PRISM, PRISM documents, and you have complete surveillance all up and down the line, all the emails, the texts, the Twitter birds, the tweets, in other words. I know what they're really called. Yes, the tweets. And you have also VoIP, voice over the internet, providers. Okay, VoIP. Well, that is a large number of the people in the United States are now using those telephones, the Lenages, the Skypes, the different thing. That is their main and only telephone. And then you see, they also are then, and we've seen all of this in the newspaper. It's all out in black and white. Then the government is taking and reviewing all of your credit card information. The post office is now, the U.S. Post Office is now taking a picture of the front and back of every piece of mail that goes through their readers, okay, that goes through their buildings. Now, I understand all of that, but you see, you try to look at this vis-a-vis what else is going on. Is that a long train of long train of abuses, evincing a design to subject us under absolute despotism? Isn't it what an absolute despot does, is to surveil all of his people and for any infractions and, penalize them, throw them in jail? Do we not have authorizations now, the Defense Authorization Act of 2013 now, that basically provides for indefinite incarceration in concentration camps at the whim or decision of the executive branch of government? That means the executive branch is a dictator. That you now have people being stopped at just even little goopy checkpoints like at Murfreesboro, Tennessee. You saw the video that's, I think, on Alex Jones. I think Steve put it up today as well. Where the cop, will not answer the question. The guy says, am I being detained? He never answers that question. He just yells at him to try to pull him over and tells him he's going to, get out of the car and blah, 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 screaming and yelling, and then they're going to search his vehicle. They ask him if he wants to consent to a search. He said, no, I don't consent to any searches. I don't have to answer you. You see, those are constitutional rights. They're rights that the Constitution enumerates that are God-given inalienable rights. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these are all adding up as a long train of abuses. The usurpations, if you have somebody who was an Indonesian citizen whose documentation apparently was, according to Wayne Madsen, was shredded by Brennan, the CIA director, in his capacity when he shredded all the information of Obama's different documents and stuff to get in here and come over here to college. He is an Indonesian citizen who is a president of the United States illegally, unconstitutionally. He does not meet the criterion. Okay? And then you have the other sideline stuff where it's alleged that the KGB recruited him at age 16 because his mama was a double agent too, and his granddaddy and grandmama, and allegedly he also has a fake Social Security number of a white man from Connecticut, which that number should only be given to somebody who lived in Connecticut. And if this man, who is now president, never lived in Connecticut, and his grandmother gave him that Social Security number, then he's put together out of whole cloth. That's his legend, as they would say, and the friends of Roland Carnaby would understand, which you guys do understand all of this because you're starting to try to speak up. And for those who don't know, Roland Carnaby was basically a Houston CIA station chief, was in charge of all security in Houston. and he got taken out after a running gun battle and chase where two hitmen sublimated inside the Houston Police Department were used to take out Roland Carnaby, who had attempted to let everybody know that he was CIA, and to try to do it, they killed him, and he had information about some impending event that was supposed to go down, maybe at Texas City, down there, because he was in charge of security for that port, you know, from Galveston on up the ship channel to Houston, et cetera, the airports and everything. Now, would it be another dot if you, you know, basically then said that you had, say, for instance, I got information today out of Kansas City where somebody was telling me that they were watching a person going through systematically. It was a plane, it was not a police car, but it had the license plate readers and things on it. And they were on the Kansas side of the metropolitan area, going corporate office building to corporate office building, going through and scanning with the license plate readers all of the plates of all of the vehicles in each parking lot, going onto the next parking lot, onto the next parking lot, onto the next parking lot, so on and so on. So they followed this individual in this vehicle. He then spotted them that he was being seen doing this. And this is not somebody where you can get this material or these scanners, these license plate scanner camera deals. This is either the feds or the state or the locals got it. And in this case, it's not the local nor the state, because they would be operating illegally in another jurisdiction across the state line. So this was a federal officer or agent of some sort taking license plate readers of thousands of cars in corporate parking lots and going through and going through and going through and going through and going through. So there's another thing. Now, from Steve Quayle today, he got a letter from somebody anonymously in Montana from the past week or two. And basically the information that was there is quite alarming on that. And the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, is that somebody saw, they drove by a hotel or motel or whatever it was, a large conference center, hotel or motel, maybe in the Butte area. We're not exactly sure where it was, but we think possibility in the Butte, Montana area. And basically what was told, because he went up there to look and to talk and to see what was going on, and the individual found out that there was over 100 Forest Service, you know, the green and white vehicles there in the parking lot. And then he found out that they were having in this giant, meeting room in the motel there, conference center, they were having a meeting of all the Forest Service people basically in the state of Montana. And then come to find out, apparently they were told that, I said, well, you ought to see it the week before. We had all of the Montana State Highway Patrol meeting in the same week before, and that was all of them, because we were wondering where were they, who was on the road, because it basically was, you know, hundreds and hundreds of these people in the meeting room. So consequently, they were getting orders, ladies and gentlemen. They also found out that at the local library there, somewhere where the town is, I don't know if it's Butte or if it's some other town around there, that they used to have, you know, very poor internet, you know, connections and very bad computers because they couldn't afford them. All of a sudden, DHS came in and gave them a grant and put all of the computers on the library on DHS internet servers. And then they also gave a grant at the same time in a small town, and Butte is not all that large, you know. They got cameras out the wazoo everywhere. So this is a whole takeover, basically, and an arming by the feds of all the state, local people, the Forest Service, the Highway Patrol, etc. We then have all kinds of situations. I can tell you that Steve Quayle's website has had some trouble. And just exactly why. You know how this show has been knocked off the air, and Steve's been knocked off the air for years. And then we have our friend old Porcupine. Got his house bugged and broken into while he was in the hospital. The scum that did that, the heck with you. There are been other friends of the shows that's happened to as well. And that security settings that were changed on computers, on security systems, and all kind of stuff. Black bag jobs. Black bag jobs by the NSA, EIEO, CIA, DHS, Department of Human Sacrifice. Black bag jobs. Porcupine, I hope you're doing better, brother. And give them heck when you see them, and don't believe me. They are coming, they are there. When I type into my computer, sometimes the scum that are fooling with my computer, which apparently I've now learned is about 6 separate agencies, because I say that is because when I send an email in some cases to 1 or 2 different people, they're receiving it 6 times at usually 6 different times of day. That's 6 different people that are on it. They've got my screen mirrored, and then they have to filter it through their system and whatever of looking at whatever quote-unquote traffic is on that system, you see. Trying to find something about it. The fact is, you are the scum, you are the tares, you're the workers of iniquity, you're the people who are weak and want to destroy and take over this country and destroy the beauty and the freedom and everything about it. You're now being told, and you used to be able to say, well, they just didn't know, or they've been promised their families to be taken care of. No, now we're starting to get into a period of time when a large number of the people involved in these agencies and who are out front in the police departments, and I don't care what stripe or level of police department, I'm telling you, a large number of people now are of the type that are going along with, yes, and you're going to get to lord over the population, and you will have the just desserts and the just fruits because you are the police, or you are the CIA, or you are the IRS, or you are the DIA, or you are the EIEIO, or the necrophiliac Shiite arseholes. You know, Tice was a good guy. Bill Biddy, good guy. They told the truth. Bill Biddy created the system basically you're using now. There's a TV show made basically about the whole story and the reason why. But you see, you want to destroy what was America. You do not want to keep it. And I do not believe you. And then as well as General Clapper there, you got General Alexander, who also perjured himself before Congress. And then you got these guys like Feinstein and Pat Roberts and all these guys. And old Roberts, yeah, he's in the Marine and all that. But believe me, basically he hasn't done anything about it either. And Roberts, I thought in the old days, had some hope because immediately after the 9/11 attack, he said massive blowback, meaning he knew that the Al-Qaeda were those who would work for the money, the database of Arabs and Muslims who would work for the money and who were associated with Osama or Tim Osman or Usama, USA, Ma. He's ours, Ma. And then now, what do we got? We've gone through Benghazi, where they allowed a U.S. ambassador to be sodomized and killed along with his guard, and for the whole embassy compound consulate to be overrun when we could have sent a TR-3B or a TR-4, could have been there within 5 to 10 minutes, and they could have laid waste to the entire city of Benghazi from above and jumped down in there and put particle beam weapons on them and lasers or conventional, or could have dropped guys out of the sky, so to speak. They could have gated down and took out all that scum that was attacking that embassy. But you see, that was a planned deal by the Joker Tut and his crew, because you had to shut up the ambassador that was starting to squeak and squawk a little bit, just like you had to kill all of those Gold Squadron Navy SEALs and the Army warrant officers, from the flying the Chinooks and the air controllers and all the different people in that, over that province there in that Chinook that was not armored Or they had them all riding on that instead of riding in the proper little birds that were armed and fast and going places. And then you have the idea that perhaps even their position was given up, so then that could be taken out. Is that a long train of abuse? Is that a usurpation? You see how these are all adding up, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the fact is that we've got Russians, which we've told you about, we've documented now, and then now FEMA basically has signed a deal with them, and that deal formally has come out, and there's discussion and talk about them even participating in security at major events. But now that people have got onto that and put all that information out, now FEMA is coming out and denying that Russians are even here, that they're going to do anything like that. When the fact is, you've got them up in the cabins in the mountains around Loveland, Colorado. You got them out in the boondocks around Fort Hood. You got them up in the Uwharrie Mountains, don't you there, DHS? You got them in the Uwharrie Mountains in places, and they're operating up there. You got them all over the EIEIO world. You got them coming into Butler County, Little Dickie Jones, the high sheriff, or the low Little Dickie sheriff of Butler County. You got them coming in out of the wazoo. You got C-17 and ICE protecting it. ICE, those are the people of immigrants, right? Protecting that at the airport in Indianapolis. We had last week. And that's, or earlier this week, we had sightings in Butler County, Ohio, of up-armored, vehicles with turrets, with machine guns, with belts on the machine guns, and riding in one of the turrets, Chinese military with Chinese military patches on their arm. And we're not talking about Taiwan or some hands across the water. We're talking about red chinks, red Chinese military. Just like we told you, we're brought in to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We also told you about the Russian troops there and how I put it out that one night. And then I said any red-blooded American troops ought to go over and ask those Russians just what in the hell they're doing on a U.S. air base when at the same time we're getting ready to go to war, perhaps against Russia, over Syria in a proxy war. And when the head general of the Russian military said that they reserved the right, if the United States was to attack Syria or to attack Iran, that they reserved the right to nuke us and to nuke us into oblivion, and that they're targeting us. That's a statement and declaration basically of war against the United States, and our own Department of Human Sacrifice and FEMA is hiring them. I've told you again and again that repeatedly their pay, and listen to this, U.S. military, listen to this out there, U.S. military, if you can even listen anymore because you're prevented from listening to this show or to Steve Quayle or to go to Steve Quayle's website or to the Hagman and Hagman, you can't even listen to it anymore for what we're being told. It's shut off completely and you're forbidden. You're forbidden. That's lots of freedom, plenty of freedom. It's what your forefathers fought for, was for you to be subjugated and to be treated like the mushroom theory, kept in the dark and having them throw poop on you all the time. Well, the fact is, there was an incident we've talked about in Wright-Pat where some of the American people just did a little challenge and there was a little firefight there that went down. We then heard that there's been trouble acclimatizing the Russians in with the regular American troops. I should hope so.
With natural and man-made disasters and economic turmoil, if we don't get well prepared, we will most certainly regret it. Good readiness must include storage of high-quality food that will build us up rather than tear us down. Much of the storable food available is full of bad fats, salt, sugar, nutrient-poor refined foods, and even MSG. In response, EnerHealth Botanicals has created our 40-day and 40-night 100% organic preparedness pail. It's GMO-free and has a 10 to 20-year shelf life if stored at 60 degrees or less. Some of the items need cooking, some can be eaten dry, while some can be soaked and sprouted. These are selling out fast at third the price of storable food packages. Call us at 866-762-9238. That's 866-762-9238. Or go to enerfood.com, ENERFOOD.com. 866-762-9238. Or go to ENERFOOD.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hawk. It's 7/5/2013. The Red Chinese Year of the Snake. It's the Year of the Serpent, but let me tell you what. The Lord Jesus gave you dominion and power over serpents and scorpions. So I'm going to tell you what. Start identifying people as who they are as the serpents, and you'll get the idea. Trample them underfoot, or a scorpion the same way. Now, just to let you know, if you want to go to interfood.com, there is, I guess, for the next couple of days, it started yesterday, there is a 10 to 30% discount, depending on what you're doing, but they basically have a what you call a scavenger hunt there. And you can, for the next few days, it's 4th of July scavenger hunt at interfood.com. You can hunt and you can find certain icons. You hit the right icons, you'll get from 10% to 30% off on any of these things. Now, the fact is, they also told me today that my audience is still growing at a rapid pace, and they're congratulating me for getting the word out and doing a good job. So keep supporting this Survive to Thrive show, and if you can get some Interfood, buy it, stretch your long-term storage food out, get the herbal tinctures, get any of the things like the bladderwrack to help with the radiation exposure, all of the different items that we've talked about and continue to talk about. Tremendous website, enerfood.com, ENERFOOD.com. And so go up there, and if you don't get a chance to do that and participate in the scavenger hunt, you can always tell them when you call at 866-762-9238, 866-762-9238, or at Interfood, ENERFOOD.com. You tell them that Hawk sent you, HAWK, that's a code word. You will get a discount on everything except for Berkefeld water filters. Everything, you get a discount over and above, discounts that are designed for quantities, etc. So go ahead and do that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to talk to you about something else. And you remember right before we went into the holiday period, there was all kinds of discussion about the possibility of false flags. I warned you 2 weeks ago about the sources, one of which was from Doug Hagman's source that at the time I gave him the benefit of the doubt to stay, unexposed as where that information came from. But basically it was talking about something to happen in the next 10 to 14 days. And that was at a time period where it would put us right in this July 4th, July 3rd time period, July 5th time period that we're in right now. And then even subsequently, he put that back out in his Hagman's intelligence report that he does, on his website, Homeland Security, US.com, Homeland Security, yes, that's Hagman's site. So consequently, he did detail it in there that what was being told is that they expected some sort of false flag event to take place. They didn't know exactly what it is, but they knew there was something that was to be taking place. Yesterday, DHS had the entire country on a massive drill and all over. They had checkpoints this, checkpoint that, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, all kind of places all over the United States, Texas, everywhere. It was one big giant checkpoint at events, and they had posted things on state parks, signs, you can't do this, you can't do that, city parks, the whole thing. You've seen all of it. You probably experienced some of this. They're out with the SWAT teams and their war wagons and their mobile command centers. and checking people's bags at the gate and all these kind of stuff. Consequently, that was all on for there yesterday. And then also, the Joker Tut put the kibosh and closed all the swimming pools on every military base, got rid of all fireworks displays or any kind of celebration on those things, and then basically put in effect the troops on every military base on alert, in a sense, because there was no organized things going on. Now, let me just tell you what I believe based on some past experience and with some knowledge about what really does happen. This is what I saw the other day. And there were reports, and this was on July 2nd. Keep in mind, right before that, I'm telling you that we had the information there might be in the July 4th era, sometime, right before it, right after it, a massive, either nuclear explosion or whatever. And then there was all kind of reports from other people picking up from their sources, talking about the possibility of a nuclear false flag in the United States. There were numerous other authors that were getting from their own sources similar types of information about a possibility of a false flag being done. And then consequently, you see a 3.6 magnitude earthquake strikes under Lake Erie. Residents report, this was from the website, the Extinction Protocol. The Extinction Protocol, I think 2012 and beyond. But if you look up the Extinction Protocol and you go for the 3.6 magnitude earthquake strikes under Lake Erie, residents report loud explosion. And this explosion was so loud that it rattled houses and everything. And when they called it in as an explosion. Now the question becomes, do you have an earthquake without an explosion? Or did you have an earthquake which caused an explosion? And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'm just going to say, that 3.8 or 3.6 magnitude is also characteristic, what Steve Quayle, what I've been told in the past from MMB and other sources in the ultra black, that is basically somewhere between 2.5 to 3.5 in those kind of ranges. That is a signature of a nuclear explosion underground or underwater. Okay, that in that type of time frame, they're either fighting or could be fighting faction to faction in the underground bases, the undersea, underlake bases, or you can have a scenario where they will take a nuclear device, if it's hot, and they need to take it, they'll take it lickety-split, and it doesn't have to be on a standard prop plane or standard plane or taken by Jeep. It could be put onto a TR-3B, and you could get there in a second or 2 seconds or a minute, and you could go boom, 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 and you can take that, dive deep in, release it, get up, and then explode it to where you explode it in a large explosion, but it doesn't go nuclear. In other words, it doesn't go nuclear, but it explodes all of the material. So that is a characteristic, fits within the realm of the characteristic signature of an underwater or underground event. Now, I believe that there was to have been a false flag. That was to be it. Now, you remember last summer, early fall, late fall, I talked about how there was, on the bridges we had from Greg Evanson's sources, about how there were DHS and military on the bridges from Ohio into Indiana, up in Butler County and then off of Cincinnati, Hamilton County there and all that, where they were basically there and, setting up like checkpoint scenarios and that kind of thing. And you recall prior to that, we had the huge drill at Muscatatuck and Atterbury there in Indiana. And the training drill, one of the scenarios was a nuclear explosion somewhere near the Cincinnati metropolitan area, and that they all were training for that and for martial law that would result from this nuclear explosion going off in that area, and that was being trained, and there were a lot of foreign troops involved in the training. And you remember there were so many people in the training and so many involved that they had even up into Michigan and all along the lake in Ohio, Indiana, and even across the lake in Michigan, basically, or around the lake up in the Michigan side, they had bought up all the motel and hotel rooms. You remember me talking about that? So here you have a scenario where we saw the red Chinese guy with 50 up-armored like MRAP type vehicles or Humvees that are up-armored with the turret and machine guns ready to go. We also have word about other places, about other foreign troops being ready. We have the entire DHS, the U.S. military, all the bases were on alert. You have statements that were even brought out into the public eye, into the public view, warning about a potential, dirty bomb attack or a potential attack or terroristic attack. So we had all this information, and now people say, well, nothing happened. Ha ha, those guys are such wrong. I submit to you that 3.6 underneath the water there in Lake Erie, which was reported by the residents as a loud explosion that rattled their homes, and it was so strong it was felt that was felt in Illinois, certainly all along the lake in Ohio, it was felt in New York, and it was felt all the way up into Illinois, Michigan, everywhere up in that area near Lake Erie. So that's a long-term thing. So what I wrote the other day, here's what I wrote and sent to Steve the other day and a couple other people. I said, note, this could possibly have been a nuclear device that was perhaps grabbed just in the nick of time and blown underwater instead. The quake scale of 3.6 Richter is within characteristic range of tactical nukes. Did the MMB, did the mighty men and women of valor stop a false flag or a little Russian Spetsnaz hijinks? Hey, Wendy L. Schneider, did some of your Russians you took to the baseball game, did they perhaps activate one of their good old Russian, suitcase nukes and were going to place it there in Cincinnati or up in Cleveland? And did some of the other U.S. military, the ultra-black, the mighty men and women of valor who still work for the Lord Jesus, did they then grab that and then deep six it into Lake Erie and blow it so there was not a problem? So was that being perpetrated under DHS FEMA affiliation? And you guys are paying them, and you're paying them at least $5,000 at a crack a month. You're paying them at least $5,000 a month, and you are paying them. It's not Russian payroll. You're paying over above that. You're providing all their food, all their lodging, all of their training, etc. You know you are. And if you say that you're not, then you're liars, and you're workers of iniquity and tares too. Just like your lying, admitted perjurer, Clapper, just like your General Alexander lied to Congress as well on several occasions too. Perjury before Congress. Now, I then said, did the MMB stop a false flag or Russian Spetsnaz hijinks perpetrated under FEMA DHS affiliation? Then I said, recall the massive fish kill off the Maryland coast, where seismographs were mysteriously offline or unavailable in most East Coast universities, and that was when the MMV interdicted in Baltimore after a chase on the streets, and they chased and got the last of 20-plus nuclear devices that had been planted in large East Coast cities back in 2004. All but that last one had been disarmed, and it was rapidly taken to the deep trench of Maryland. So consequently, ladies and gentlemen, I had remembered that the HQ Intel alert, which was Hagman Quayle back in 2004, Doug wrote this up in here after Steve had brought out that there had been, and Steve never told the exact number, he's kept that secret, it's 20-plus nuclear devices that were in cities from Boston all the way down to Baltimore and maybe other places as well. And I've told you in the past about how a brave man named Kevin and a group of teams from the mighty men and women of valor went in and grabbed most of those and were able to disarm them. The one that they had to chase on the Baltimore City street for was one of the most sophisticated, brand new, American-provided, U.S.-provided from Los Alamos, Sandia kind of area, allegedly, nuclear device, and that they could not disarm it, and they took it and deep-sixed it in the deep trench off the coast of Maryland, and that there was a large, obviously, explosion, and then there was a massive fish kill, which got reported, and then mysteriously there were all the seismographs from Columbia University on down, all the big universities. They were just offline or missing. They had data missing for that date. Now, this is what he showed in the HQ Alert newsletter on July 17, 2004. And Doug went through an actual scenario where he contacted different sources based on Steve's information. And he talked about it and confirmed with 3 separate sources. And I hope Steve Quayle maybe put this up, or Doug puts this up on his side as a redux or redo. Because basically, let's see, let me if I can read one of them here. Find the one I want. Okay, here we go. Here's July 14th, 2004. This interesting was in July again, wasn't it? And he says at 1:20 in the name of the morning, he said, name redacted, Doug says, I contacted by telephone a well-vetted and unimpeachable active government source who stated that multiple nuclear devices had been located inside of the continental United States and their countdown detonation timers had been initiated. If you're longtime listeners to this show, then you'll recall this. If you were subscribers to the HQ Intel Alert, then you would know this. This source was unable to reveal the locations or the total number of devices or any additional specific information. Not because he had none, but because the contact was necessarily short. Made under extreme pressure with a general threat to the caller from his superiors that absolutely no outside contacts were permitted. Realizing what was at stake and placing the value of truth over such orders, the source risked everything to make the call. He added that while some of the units were neutralized, a special branch of an elite paramilitary unit was having a difficult time in disarming one of the units, and he feared that a U.S. city would cease to exist within hours. He then goes on and lists several other sources. He confirmed this with 2 to 3 different sources in the federal government, all of which were reluctant to speak, but did in fact confirm it, because there were still good people back then who were worried, extremely worried about the safety of the United States and of Americans. Unlike a whole lot of people now who are just ready to subjugate the United States and to take it over and to lord it over us and to take the goods and services and to put us under NDAA in the concentration camps. Or how about another one of those long train of abuse and usurpations, you see? The DHS HIS squads. And the fact that the FBI and the Freedom of Information Act released and DHS released how they were going to take out, occupy, quote unquote, occupy protesters in Houston with sniper rifles, with 338 Lapua sniper rifles, and how they were planning to assassinate by sniper and kill leaders of a resistance movement of people who were protesting within their rights to petition their government for redress of grievances under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, freedom to practice the religion you want, freedom to petition your government for redress of grievance. So, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, and I believe, based on this information, that 3.6 was a nuclear device that was scheduled to go off probably according to plan and according to the training regime last fall or end of summer of the possibility of a nuclear event in the Cincinnati area. And that would include the Cincinnati Greater Metro, would include on up into Dayton, where the right pat and all that is. Hamilton County, Butler County, Warren County, that whole area. We've detailed on and on and on again about the Russians who keep coming in over there, the Red Chinese who came in. And incidentally, the Red Chinese have also been seen, and maybe some of those guys in those vehicles went on up in near and are hidden probably in log or out in the forest or on an old military base or some kind of an old airport, some kind of facility, an old ROTC barracks or something. They're hidden, supposedly up around Oxford, Ohio. Either that or they just took a little sojourn up there, came back in through Butler County, maybe went back to Muscatatuck. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at this whole scenario, we had all the drills. We had everything ready to go. You also had timed in the Middle East the coup d'etat of the Egyptian military against the Muslim Brotherhood, Morsi. Now you see everybody say, oh, well, this guy's for that, and Obama's for this one and that and the other one. Well, let me tell you something. If the Joker Tut Lizard is bucking for the AC's job, and whether he is or he isn't, doesn't make the difference if he's bucking for it and is of that Luciferian persuasion, regardless of whether it might be really Boutros Ghali or some other potential Will.I.am or somebody like that, Prince William, whoever it might be. In this particular case, it wouldn't make any difference because what is the Illuminati, what's the Luciferian, the High Masonic, basically, motto? Ordo ab chaos. Out of the chaos comes the order. The order. The order is instilled or installed under a martial law, Nazi, blitzkrieg, Russian, Cheka, KGB kind of a crackdown, like Solzhenitsyn talks about when they arrested in what was then St. Petersburg, was then Stalingrad, where they arrested a quarter of the city, maybe 250, 300,000 people back then of a city of 1 million people or whatever. Maybe bigger. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, we had the attempted false flag.
Stand by. Technical difficulties.
I guess the NSA has telltale themselves, so therefore everything I've stated tonight is the truth. Those of you pick it up, if we're still up on the servers, then that will be fine. But let me tell you something. It appears that we were knocked off the air for quite some time there. So that just tells you that the NSA or the DHS or the EIEIO or somebody put the kibosh, knocked the old hawk off the air again. So therefore you can say that what I've told you tonight is the truth. They have telltale themselves and basically said that for all intents and purposes, old hawk has told you the truth. That confirms in my mind that yes, the 3.6 magnitude quake was probably a nuclear device that was to be used in a false flag somewhere around the 4th of July. In other words, take the liberty away on Independence Day. We had all the drills. The military was, all their stuff was ready to go. You had the Joker Tut and those guys out earlier in the week in Africa. And then I was going to submit there that it was odd that you had President George W. Bush, Rex Arbusto, was there rebuilding an AIDS clinic. Does he still have some sort of a guilt or trouble over his Yale Skull and Bones twin, who apparently at one point in time, the guy Vince, I believe his name was, or I forget his exact name, his last name, but he was from Knoxville, Tennessee, who is W's twin. Does he have guilt about that and the gay situation that he had with that twin and the AIDS that guy allegedly contracted? And then at the same time, was this an opportunity to get and to gain perhaps another African shamanistic type oriented demon? Was it, like to get a new demon installed in your pantheon, in your own brain or your own being? I don't know. But it sure was weird to see those two presidents in Africa at a time when the whole world is ready to blow up, when the economy in the United States is terrible, when the Bank of Japan is ready to blow, when you got Russians and Red Chinese in one of the largest naval exercises with 19 ships in the Sea of Japan. You got Israel sitting there at the ready to go against Syria, ready to go against Iran, ready to go against the Lebanon. You got all this stuff going down in Egypt, and now you got $100 million vacation and tra-la-la-la-la to Senegal, where the Joker Touch wife can say that she lives in a prison. And isn't how terrible it is. And then one thinks about this Egyptian scenario and how in that scenario now you've got the story there where I guess they've come out today, and basically Obama is trying to make sure that the Egyptian government, let me see if I can read the statement. While President Barack Obama's administration has stopped short of condemning the July 3rd military takeover, this is out of Bloomberg today, it has called on Egyptian leaders to pursue a transparent. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to go. Suffice to say, this thing is ready to pop, but I think by the grace of God, and it's very brave men and women of valor, I believe the false flag event was stopped. And so therefore, you had better prepare like there is no tomorrow, because there may not be. Good night to the mighty men and women of valor. Thank you. Good night to the old Bandanga Rangers. I know you're there, doing good. And old Mickey LaPool. Mickey, you be dialed in, because I know you be frosty cool in the pool. But I know you're still dialed in and ready to go. Don't go into their Luciferian night without a fight. See you next week. Go and prepare tonight and tomorrow. Good night.